Good evening, all. This is Professor York again. This is the last in our series in terms of elements of a good marketing plan. We've talked about situation analysis, we've talked about objective setting, we've talked about strategy. We've really talked a lot about strategy. Now we get to the fun stuff, the tactics. This is what everybody thinks marketing is all about. Well, we're going to take a closer look. I think there may be some pearls that may help you be more effective with your clients in terms of what tactics, how to use them, how to measure them. So this is last in our series, and this is our blueprint. Types of tactics, time and strategy, which is always critical. So we talk about why are we doing this? And then a little structure, tactical templates, budget, metrics. Ooh, you mean we have to have that too? Yes, we do have to have that in a brand plan. It's not just about we're going to do all this stuff. Well, the stuff is going to cost money. So this is where you make investment. And this is where if you've done your strategy well and you've thought through things, you're able to say, I need to allocate X dollars towards these activities because they're going to support a certain strategy. And to make sure we're doing it right, we're going to measure it. We're going to follow things. We're going to have certain metrics or key performance indicators. So you've seen this slide beforehand, but I can't just help to remark that most small businesses, and I think many businesses, just they throw stuff again. Let's just put out a lot of stuff. Okay? What I like about the guy on the right-hand side, and this is what I was talking about with good strategy, smart tactics, is that he's more focused. And as a result, because he's smarter in how he's approaching, he is actually more productive. So I've never pointed this out about this slide beforehand, but now as we've gone through this series, you can see that smart business and smart use of tactics, not just trying everything, can lead to greater productivity. So there are a variety of promotional tactics, and we talked about them in promotion. We talked about in strategy, earned versus paid. Basically the magnet versus the outreach. We talked about earned versus free. Okay, we talked about, with the earned being the PR, the articles, the interviews, the communication to followers, and blogging. So that earned means I'm getting something for free. Okay, but you still have to work for it. And in fact, our Rockin' R team that's part of their whole PR strategy, is to be able to get the story picked up in a music business magazine. Now, just as a note, as a sidebar here, this last year in 2016, the presidential election, whether you support or not, you have to take a step back and say, Trump did an amazing job with his Twitter. Okay? And he was able to get so much reach for free as a result. Because he's a businessman. And he's spending his own money. Also is he was able to get picked up and interviewed by so many news outlets. And if he had an event, he would get free coverage. He estimated that he probably had as much free media in terms of dollars than the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. So just think about that. Talk about how you can be smart and savvy. Whether you like Donald or not, that's not the point. The point is that the approach is a very smart approach in terms of getting and connecting with your followers, building audiences, and taking action. And not necessarily spending a lot of resources. Now, for your what we call your paid, there's this traditional media that we're all familiar with. The TV with the Doritos commercial, the print ads that we've seen, the billboards, the direct mail, the flyers, okay? Then there's radio. And then now in our new world of marketing, I think over the last 10 to 15 years, we've been dealing with digital. And this is not, it used to be, hey, we have a website, but now it's more than a website. It's social media plan with keywords and SEO and AdWords to drive traffic through our social media, Facebook into our website so we can get a call to action. Or we have bought through Google a banner ad, or we have automated vis-a-vis Salesforce.com, or we may have constant contact in terms of email, or we may have our own blog. So this has become really the new tactical mix versus the traditional mix. And then we've already talked about the social media options that are there. I will just make a note that there are some new ones that come in, Pinterest, Instagram, because people are sharing photos. Twitter has been, as we talked about with Trump, but WeChat is very interesting. It's very popular with the folks in Asia, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to see more and more of. I was exposed to it over the summertime as I worked with a few folks from Asia in a Berkeley class, and I was rather fascinated by the platform. And then we even see it in our entertainment product placement. Think about a movie or, like American Idol. I mean, how did it get there? Well, it didn't get there just magically. Somebody paid for the Coca-Cola machine to be there in Breaking Bad. Or the Coke glasses with the logos to be in American Idol. And then there's trade shows, because live meetings are critical. You got to be there with customers because they create leads and lead time. And there's some it makes sense. Like if you have like medical equipment or something, or you have the new and latest electronic equipment. There's a show in Vegas that is, I think, in the beginning of every year. So, these are, or if you're in the golf business, you go to the PGA trade show. There's two of them actually, and they're gigantic. Okay, so especially in your physical goods, and there's the key thing is that you walk these trade shows, expositions. A lot of folks who've been in this business have relationships, so you run into the people you know. That's where a lot of business gets done. So trade shows, you can't overlook it if you have a physical product. And then most importantly is the sales force and the materials that they use. And as a marketer, this is very critical because the sales force are very critical to really closing the business and maintaining a customer relationship and getting referrals. And it's not just their charm and personality and selling skills, which is very important. That's another lecture that we could go into. But it's the tools and materials that you provide them as a marketer to make sure that your message is there, that you're helping Salesforce with helping the customer through that funnel. So those are pieces that you have to think about in your tactical mix as well. So how does it all fit together? So we talked about push. So I've just pulled this out of that Genentech plan that we had worked on for Berkeley. And, we're talking about push. And there's certain tactics that are designed for specific things, as you can see on the top, in terms of medical marketing activities or pricing and reimbursement activities or management of channels or rebates. These are things to just make sure that the product gets loaded into wholesalers and payers. Okay, and that's the point here. But then there's activities for pull, which involve what we traditionally associate with marketing, which is the field sales and the sales tool. Make sure that we have share of voice so that we can ensure that we drive sales and we're in the supermarket or on the formulary, or that we have speakers or studies or publications, or we get timely, our clients get timely payment. And in this case, if you're selling a drug, you want to make sure if the client, being a doctor or a hospital, buys the drug, that they're reimbursed timely. And heart of the pull might be not only these pieces, but also conference and meetings and non-personal promotion, which we think of more of the direct mail or the digital media that reaches out. The billboards that are at the trade shows or even the trade show booth could play into this mix on the bottom. So what's critical here is to be effective. They need to tie strategically with the funnel. Okay, so you're looking at push and pull, but you got to think about the funnel, and I think that's very important. And I think you guys are working on the funnel, as you work with your clients. But here's just an example of how marketing materials and tools fit the funnel. Okay, you start in, you have a campaign, sales sheets. It's going to now bring in people who are interested. Those are prospects, and then you have a reference story. Okay, which then will validate, and then you get into, from the validation, having a demonstration or a sponsor letter, and that will help to qualify that customer, and then a specific solution blueprint proposal and specific pricing, which is for the folks that are really seriously considering it, and then ultimately implementation of billings, which is off that proposal. And then with the post, what I like is we're dealing with that, that key piece, because that's so critical in terms of, the customer management, so that they stay a customer and they refer others too. This comes from our MDI care in terms of looking at various social media, that fit. So as you can see, it's a little involved here, but let me walk you through in terms of the AIDA. In terms of that one, there are certain things that are going to drive people into the funnel. Okay, that Facebook will help with building that relationship. Okay, you also have your Twitter account and your Pinterest, just to get awareness. But what we're trying to do with these pieces is to drive them in the funnel and get them to the website, which now drives them from interest ultimately to action, which is ordering that app. But we may be, in terms of folks who are interested, we have to have a YouTube video in terms of how to use the app. So those pieces, as you see, play different roles in the purchase process. And this is just another way of being able to depict those relationships between, we have what we call strategically secondary sites from social sites that you're driving traffic to more primary sites, which are the desired sites, such as your website, which you have your call to action, which may be join our club. Okay, for more information, fill out this form so that we can send you or get a newsletter or get this free download. Or if you want to check out the app, you want to have a free trial. Okay, but to get people to the website, you've got to have your secondary and your primary support social sites. Most folks use Facebook as their primary support site to be able to drive. In fact, in this class, we'll be using Facebook and redefining it and getting it to link in with the website, so we can really help with funneling those customers through. But then, we do talk about secondary sites such as Twitter, which is such an effective short and sweet tool, and then YouTube as well, that help with not only funneling folks in, but also in terms of aiding at the website, in terms of getting that customer from interest to consideration to ultimately acquisition or making some action. So this just sort of gives you another visual depiction of how these pieces together. So the point being is, it's not just about doing things, but thinking about how they all interact, and that involves a little strategy. And it involves a direction, in versus out. So now we go from the different tactics, a little strategy ties to tactics, to, I hate to say the boring nuts and bolts. You got to put together a budget. You got to put together a plan in your brand plan. There's a tactical plan. So here's what we call a tactical template, which is the tactic, the timing. So when are you going to do it during the year or during a phase of launch or post-launch? What is the cost going to be? And then what are the metrics? So, how are we going to measure success? So those are some of the key components that are there relative to when you are pulling together your tactics. And then those budget items roll up into a master budget. And at the end of the day, what you do and what you invest in needs to get measured. So what gets measured gets managed. Or as Peter Drucker, who's probably the other guru, I think, of one of the other gurus on strategy. And then there's the third guru, which is Tom Peters, which is In Search of Excellence out of McKinsey. It says what gets measured gets done. So in essence, tactically, think about this. You set up the experiment and you set out key performance indicators. You run the experiment, you measure the KPIs, and then you evaluate. Based on the success, you stay the course or not, or you pivot. I remember sitting in this class with some SEO experts, and they would talk about how they would utilize certain AdWord or keyword strategies. And they put them out for 2 weeks, so they'd set up the experiments. They set certain key performance indicators in terms of traffic that would be coming through and click-throughs and actual call to actions. They then run the experiment, measure, and then evaluate. Boom, this works. Or if it isn't working, let's change something so that we can make it work. Or it get a certain amount of performance, let's change something that we can get even better performance. So this is a very good process to start thinking about as you have your tactics, not just throw them out there. So part of your plans, if you are putting together business plans that involve tactics, should be about how do you roll them, how do you measure it, how do you make some decisions from whether they're working or not. That's smart business. It's smart management. And then here we have an integrated program example. And yes, it is ugly and it is involved. But this comes from our MDI Care business plan, which you can find in our Polylearn website. But as you can see, we have tactic, budget, and again, we have tracking and analysis, which is our metrics. And as you look, what we're looking at is the timing as well, as you see the timing in terms of 3 to 9 months that are there. So this gives you sort of a sense of, as you pull together a tactical template, it's more than just putting a tactic and some dollars against it. So as you put these pieces together, what you start thinking about, as we've talked about the 4 pieces, is we start with that current situation. And that current situation allows us to forecast objectives, okay? But it also allows us to help us define our strategy. And from our strategy come these tactical plans, budgets, and metrics. And our budget's tied back to our objectives and how we're performing or not performing. If we're not performing well, our budgets are going to get adjusted accordingly because we need to manage the bottom line. If the top line is not performing well, what happens is, and your gross profits aren't, then what happens is that your SG&A usually gets trimmed. And you'll see that when you work in corporate. It happens all the time. But the metrics piece is great because it's great feedback that comes back to tactical plans, back to your objectives, and even as you're capturing this data in terms of your current situation as you go into your next brand plan. So, I close out with, again, this classic cartoon, but, tactics without a strategy is just a fishing expedition. But if you are savvy, you may not have everything in the world. Just have the right things. Or as I would quote one of my vice presidents of marketing when I was at Amgen 20 years ago. He said, do less things, but do them smart. Do the right things. Do them smarter and do them better. So in the end, as we've gone through this series, hopefully one of the key points that you take away is before you work the plan the work. Make sure you've thought it through. And make sure at the end of the day that you monitor it. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for your persistence through this. I thank you for the discussion we're going to have. I certainly hope that you've taken a pearl or two that will help you be not only a good marketer, but a great marketer. Thanks much. Have a great evening, and I'll see you in class soon.